What you are listening to now is the Central Indiana Sports Report podcast number 352.1, the IU Report with Grant Shouse. This week, Grant has a recap of IU's three-game excursion to Puerto Rico and of the football team's inter-squad scrimmage and Coach Cignetti's comments after the scrimmage. Enjoy.
You're listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report with your host, Greg Mengelt.
Welcome, Hoosier fans, to the Central Indiana Sports Report and the IU Report with Grant Shouse. We are recording over the phone today. We've been doing most of our podcast face-to-face recently, but this week is the last week before Season 2 officially begins on the Central Indiana Sports Report, Grant, and I have made it bare bones this week as far as podcasts go. One a day is all I'm doing to prepare for next week. But this had to be one that made the cut because we got some basketball to talk, and there is reason to be excited if you're a Hoosier fan.
Indiana had a really good week down in Puerto Rico. They went 3-0, which I think was a little bit of a surprise to us.
Surprise to me.
If you heard our podcast last week, it was a little bit surprising. They went 3-0. We projected maybe them going 1-2 down there and beating the Puerto Rican team.
Yeah.
And then they picked up 2 wins against Mega Superbet,
which is a professional team.
Yeah, it was the professional team that Nikola Jokic played for in Serbia. That was his team over there. So they have a good track record.
Right.
And they've had some good players come through their team, and Indiana got them twice. Indiana trailed by double digits in one game in both games they trailed by 20 at one point and came back to win both games. And that was that was pretty unbelievable if you think about it. And they had some good production out of their new guys, and that was just a real special thing for them to do, and it kind of gives the fan base some hope going into the season.
Grant, you know what stood out to me?
What?
The last 4 since Coach Knight, none of the IU coaches have been known as coaches who make great adjustments at halftime and lead your team back from behind. It's happened for all those coaches, don't get me wrong, but that's not really what.
It's not a consistent thing.
Yeah. Coach Knight did it all. Coach Knight did it all the time. He would find ways to rattle team until he caught them from behind. But what Coach DeVries did this week, leading his team back in both games and by big numbers, I think you got a real coach there.
I hope you're right, and you are right on the adjustment part. We've seen so many coaches there that can't make adjustments. Yeah, they'll have to make adjustments as the year goes on, and thankfully now it looks like they have a coach that can do those things, and we've seen in years past that just wouldn't happen. That just wasn't happening with the last coach or the coach before that, and sometimes even the coach before that.
And definitely the coach before that.
And it cost them. With Tom Crean not making adjustments, cost them a chance at maybe going to the Final Four one year when they lost to Syracuse.
Absolutely.
And he could not get through the tough 2-3 zone. My main concern would have to be the defense, although they, at one point in that first game against Mega Superbet, outscored them 70-19.
Crazy.
At some point, while all that's happening and you go on runs like that, sometimes your offense becomes your best defense. Just from you scoring and going on runs can rattle a team. And that throws them out of their rhythm. That throws them out of their flow. And I think maybe that's what happened. The only bad part about all that is that we're all still kind of scratching our heads a little bit because we really still don't know how it happened. because we haven't been able to watch. We've seen some videos here and
Right.
there, but that doesn't really tell us anything, you know.
Well,
Lamar Wilkerson,
it tells us that
Lamar Wilkerson hitting a three really doesn't tell us much, but you kind of do get the story just based off the people who were there and them telling us about it.
and we got some stats and
That's true.
and they're good ones because let's go through a few of these. Trent Sisley with 21 points in the first game. I know as a college team from Puerto Rico, they were not great, but to have Trent Sisley go out and lead you in scoring, you want to see that from a freshman.
I was surprised that he played as much as he did, to be honest with you. You know, you knew he'd be in the rotation, but you didn't know what his minutes were going to be like.
Yeah, there are definitely
And
questions.
I think what he's capable of being is another Tucker DeVries, who wasn't even the best player. He
Right.
was not the best player this week. Now, he was a good player, don't get me wrong, but stats wise, he did not lead them in scoring. You could tell by his stats, he made plays. He had 6, 7, 8 assists each game. He pulled down, 8, 9 rebounds a game. But he was only scoring, low double figure points, 10, 12, 14 points a game. The one name that stood out to me on the stat sheet, and I know one game in particular, I can't remember which game it was against Mega Superbet, but was Sam Alexis, that transfer from Florida.
Right. Who I
And
keep
you've been
telling
talking,
you. Yeah.
yeah, you've been talking about him for a while, Greg. I'll be honest with you, when you kept saying that, I'm like, I don't know. He wasn't, he didn't start at Florida. He played, but he didn't play as, he wasn't
Because
a
they had the
main
best team in the
guy.
country.
Yeah, and they won the national. I mean, he was on a team that won the national
Right.
championship. So to see what he did, that was impressive. And then of course Reed Bailey, who hit the game-winning shot in the third game against Mega Superbet. That was big.
Grant,
He's that transfer from Davidson, and they just have so many guys that I think are going to step up.
it sounds like to me that the name that jumped off the film from what I hear is Lamar Wilkerson. He had a couple of really big games, and he might be the best offensive player on the team.
Yeah, maybe. That's a good question, and that's a question that I think we'll be able to answer a couple weeks into the season. Hopefully by the end of the Marquette game, which is the second game of the year in November, I think we'll know the answer to that question. But that's not a far-fetched answer at this point.
And
He was one of their top. He is outside of Tucker DeVries was probably the best transfer they got in out of their portal class. And I'm looking forward to see what he's going to be able to do. And it sounds to me, Greg, like he can shoot the rock. We know he was over a 40% three-point shooter the whole year, but last year at Sam Houston State. But the thing is you don't really know how that's going to translate over to
you
Indiana.
never know. Some players it translates well, other players it just doesn't, and you just never know. But I just want to remind people, it sounds ridiculous, Mega Super Bet, but this is a legit professional basketball team in a basketball country, and I don't think this was all their best players, but it's a bunch of professional basketball players.
This would be like playing the Detroit Pistons.
No,
I don't know how good they are in Serbia.
no, it would not be like
I'm
playing the
throwing out a
Detroit
name.
Pistons. It would
Right.
be nothing like playing the Detroit Pistons.
But it's like Serbia's version.
Right,
Is what I'm
exactly.
saying.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's Serbia's version of the Detroit. Now the Detroit Pistons would probably mop the floor. But in terms of
yes.
what Serbia has over there, that's one of their main professional,
Yes.
if not their main professional team. I don't know enough
Right.
about it to give you that answer, but
It is
they are a professional team in a professional basketball league.
a bunch of guys who play basketball for a living, and that's all they do.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk some football news. There hasn't been much, but there was a scrimmage. What have you heard coming out of that?
I heard from the head coach in his press conference this week that I watched that it was messy. There was too many penalties, but that's what a head coach is going to say this time of year. These guys here, especially by the end of next week, because next week will be the last camp week, like full camp week. And then the week after that will be game week. So then you start treating it like you're getting ready to go play the game on Saturday. And they will be in 2 weeks. These guys, by the end of next week, are going to be ready to play. And I wouldn't be at all shocked if they're all not ready to play now. They're tired of practicing. They don't want to practice. They want to be able to go out there and play the game.
And they're getting close.
And these coaches, and you talk to high school coaches too about this week. Go ask these high school coaches, Greg, in your interviews with them and your preseason interviews with whoever it may be around the Central Indiana Sports Report. And you ask them if they're ready to go play that first game, and they're probably going to tell you, whether it's off the record or on the record, that they're not ready to go play. They hope they can have a few more practices.
Sure.
And
every coach always thinks that, but it's true. We're not quite ready yet.
Yeah, I think you have to take what the head coach says with a grain of salt a little bit. You know, he may be right, and he probably is.
Yes.
But at the same time, he's going to say that because he just doesn't think that the team is where it needs to be quite yet. And they'll be there. I think if you still threw them out there right this second against Old Dominion, they're still going to win. But there's obviously things that are going to need to be cleaned up. There's, you're still dealing with your, a little bit of injuries, at this time of year, your minor injuries. He mentioned last week D'Angelo Pons, their cornerback, was out for a little bit of last week due to a tweaked ankle. Nothing to be really concerned about at this point.
He is, quote, fine, unquote. So.
Yeah. And then they were shorthanded last week. Amari Farrell's mom passed away a few weeks ago, and he was gone last week. And just some other situations. We, knock on wood, haven't heard of a significant injury yet from anyone. No one that I don't think is going to miss the entire year. Now, I will say this, Lewis Moore, defensive back for Indiana, who was at Indiana under Tom Allen, left Indiana to go play at Ole Miss, played at Ole Miss, was a starter for Lane Kiffin and all them down there.
He realized, like everybody eventually does, that Indiana's the best place in the world.
Yep. Decides he wants to come back. Well, his eligibility is it's kind of in question. I don't necessarily. I'm a little confused on it because he was hurt for 1 year at Indiana and redshirted, but he had already completed a year at his JUCO before he originally came to Indiana the first time, and then he sat out a year, and then he was, and then he played, and then he transferred, and now he's back. Well, he wants to get his year of eligibility back after this year and be able to play next year in 2026. And so he is actually suing the NCAA on that and was in court today. And a judge said that he could practice for 2 weeks. They gave him like some kind of I'm not a lawyer. I really don't know what it is, but he's able to practice until August 27th, and then the process starts over again. Well, they're not even going to play a game by August 27th. So after that, depending on what the court rules, whenever they do, hopefully it's on August 27th, then he'll be able to play. But for now, he's able to practice, but as of now, his eligibility would then be up by the 27th, and he wouldn't be able to play in the season opener. It's all confusing. The details are kind of not all there. I hate to say this. I don't want to say I don't know much about it, but like I'm just confused in the process they have to go through. But the matter of fact is that he's battling the NCAA. They're going to court, and his eligibility is up in the air. And hopefully he'll be able to play. And the way it sounds, I think he'll be able to. So I don't think Indiana fans should really worry that much. I don't think it's going to be a big deal, but I think you're going to see him out there on the field in 2025 and 2026.
Coach Signetti did say that the offense was quite a bit ahead of the defense, but as you mentioned, the defense was missing a few key parts. Does that tell you anything?
We talked about some of those guys that have been missing, like D'Angelo Pons, who was
Yeah.
hurt,
He
and
changes
then
the
Amari.
defense all by himself, so my
Yeah, and then
question's kind of silly.
Amari Farrell. But I mean, those the defense still has McCall Kamara. They still have Aiden Fisher. I really just don't think it's anything to be concerned about quite yet. I think Indiana's just fine. Yeah, the offense probably was ahead of the defense a little bit. That offense, works together a lot. They're a little they're probably a little more in tune than the defense is at this point. But I think things are going to get better, and I still don't think it's really anything to be too concerned about. But I don't know how much it really tells us is the thing. I think you'd know more about what it tells us here in a few weeks.
And that's going to be the answer to almost everything that we talk about as far as the football team goes, Grant. We'll
Yeah,
know in a few weeks.
Greg, we're 17 days out from the first game against Old Dominion, and it's going to be
Can't
another
wait.
great season. Can't wait, man. I just been counting down the days, and it's going to be here, and before we know it. If you look at it on the Central Indiana Sports Report, we really have two more big IU reports, maybe one or two more IU reports until then.
That's right.
So
Two
that's a
more,
good way to look at it.
Two more, and then we'll have a game preview, and then we'll have a reaction with Grant, and then we'll do it all again the next week and every week until the end of the basketball season.
Yeah, and hopefully we're doing that until April.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, could you imagine
Well,
doing that until April?
whether you're still doing the IU report through April or not, we'll still at least be doing an NCAA tournament report. Either way, so
and college basketball, and hopefully on that college football too.
Maybe we'll be talking about the Boilermakers national championship. Can I say that on this podcast?
No, you can't.
Okay, I won't then.
Okay. All right.
One last thing before we go. I know you are the IU expert and I'm just a novice, but I have been doing a little research, and the name LeBron Bond came up in my research, and it looks like this young man is special.
What a name that dude has.
It is a great name.
It's a great name. I mean, his parents his parents really are blessed to come up with that. He's a guy, Greg, that is going to get time this year. I think he's going to play, and he may not be a starter like right away, but this is a guy that's going to get on the field. In my opinion, and if you saw my tweet last night, I don't know if you did, or maybe some people listening did, but Indiana last year had a guy by the name of Keyshawn Williams, who was a special teams player. His best game of the year last year was against Michigan, and he made big play after big play after big play, and he ended up making the game-winning play, returning a punt that got them into field goal range. They couldn't move the ball in that game, and he returned a punt that got them into field goal range where it didn't really matter how far they moved the ball, but they could set up for a field goal, and it ended up winning them the game. And he had a huge game then, and he contributed all year long. But I think this LeBron Bond, Greg, is going to kind of replace Keyshawn Williams, who's now with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Right.
And made a phenomenal catch in a preseason game the other day against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So the expectations are high, not only for LeBron Bond, but that entire receiving corps, especially Elijah Surratt. I mean, we know about Elijah Surratt already. And then you factor in LeBron Bond and Omar Cooper Jr. and E.J. Williams. And there's just so many guys in that wide receivers room, Greg, that if they were to go play anywhere else, maybe not everywhere else, but most teams in the Big Ten, they'd be the number one wide receiver on some of those teams in the Big Ten. And that just goes to show the depth they have. And that's what I think Indiana's going to be able to use to their advantage, is the depth that they have.
Grant, thank you so much once again. And I want to let everybody know one more time, kind of clarify, this is the last week of season 1 of the Central Indiana Sports Report. Next week is season 2, and I'm going to keep updating every year depending on what I think people want and what we like to do and what doesn't make me go crazy with all my time. And it all begins Monday morning with Central Indiana Sports Central, which is what we're calling our flagship program now. And look forward to talking IU. I believe it's 166 times between now and next year at this time.
Wow, man. Can't wait to it. And I'm glad that you've chosen me to participate in that. It's really fun. I
It is
enjoy
fun.
doing this.
Thanks a lot, Grant.
Thanks so much, Greg. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much to Grant for joining me once again to talk some IU sports. And to you for listening. Please do us a huge favor and share this podcast with an IU fan in your life and help spread the word that the Central Indiana Sports Report is here talking about Central Indiana sports every single day. Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media, and I love Susie.